Good morning. The whole creation, and we too, groan as if in labor. I don't know anything about giving birth, and if I'm honest, I'm rather grateful. The female members of my family have let me know that it can be a very chaotic, painful, even terrifying time, but it may bring great joy. I think it a rather apt metaphor for what we experience in becoming our true selves. I think that is what Paul is talking about here, becoming our true selves. But before we can talk about that, we need to address Paul's understanding of nature, which was, frankly, extremely limited. And unfortunately, there can be a tendency to take Paul's teaching on flesh and spirit we have been hearing of late in his letter to the Romans in the lectionary, literally and to its logical extremes. And there is a problem with that, a rather serious problem, as it turns out. In fact, it gave birth to one of the most serious early heresies in the church, known as Gnosticism. This second-century philosophy and theology basically taught that all physical reality was corrupt and evil, and the only good and pure was the spiritual. There were other problems from an Orthodox viewpoint that were problematic, but what I want to focus on is this disregard, no more, hatred, fear of the physical that arose from Paul's teachings. To be fair, these ideas have arisen in other religious and philosophical traditions. This isn't solely a Christian or even a Paul problem. However, I think it is crucial, given the crisis we find ourselves in with COVID-19, to talk a little about our hostility to the physical, to the natural world. In part, a problem with Paul's teaching was in a couple of premises. First, Paul viewed the decay and death in nature as a result of sin, of evil. It was a common idea of his time, and frankly, remained very common up until the modern age. He projected, to use a modern psychological term, our wickedness on the creation, and in so doing, distorts it. Then again, not understanding anything about evolution or the differentiation of species, he tended to see that reality from his Platonic worldview as very far from the ideal, perfect forms that Plato theorized were true reality, only known in the mind, which exists, or seems to exist, in the spiritual, pure realm of ideas. Of course, we know we don't die because of sin, and decay, death, and renewal are just a part of the harmony of nature and the ability of these interrelated systems to keep making order out of chaos. It may often seem cruel to us, because the lion does not lie down with the lamb, and never will in the physical creation we live in, but that does not make it evil. It is a harmony that works for the greater good of all. Individual organisms and even whole species come and go, but the harmony remains. No, we need to refocus on ourselves to see where evil lies. Although Paul's premises might be faulty, his teaching as metaphor is still very helpful. We are very much at war with ourselves, both in our physical being within this universe and world, the natural systems we are part of, whether we like it or not. And we are so unclear, maybe even lost, clueless about our true reality and destiny that Paul tells us the spirit within us yearns for and sees dimly, as though in a mirrored veil or in a dream. Biologists who study zoonotic disease are telling us that our disastrous exposure to COVID-19 is very much connected to our total lack of respect for and willingness to live in harmony with the rest of the natural order we are a part of. We tend to think that we are exempt as sentient humans with our spiritual God-given natures, or that because of our technology, we are somehow superior and in charge. We always think we can tech our way out of any problem we cause. Sadly, our Western philosophy and even theology can lead us to this true lack of regard or concern for our proper place within our fragile biome. We need to reassess this war we started. Nature is not the enemy. Paul makes it clear. We are. Paul tells us we have wandered so very far from God. The true point of his teaching is, how do we get back? You know, as I was musing on these ideas, I remembered my fascination with ants as a boy. I was so intrigued, following them home, seeing how they arranged their lives for the good of the colony. It's no wonder I found my way to bees, really, and they make honey, unlike ants. But it made me think of biologists who give their entire adult lives to study, say, an obscure salt and heat-loving bacteria that lives in some of the most dangerous habitat on Earth. But they will risk anything to relate to this one little organism because, well, they've fallen in love. Is not that love? True regard and appreciation of something outside ourselves that amazes us? And so God is intrigued with us and is constantly visiting our little colony. Whatever God is totally other than this universe or any other universe, and has no more need of us than the ant you might find wandering across your path, and yet intrigued, falling in love with us, seeing a possibility in us to love, to appreciate what a marvel we are, and what a marvel all of existence is, if we would but appreciate it and live in harmony with it and with each other, with ourselves. If we would have the destiny God so desires for us, we must begin working on that destiny now, in our lives now, to respect and cherish and steward this wonderful island nursery of ours in the unfathomable reaches of space and time. What we will be, well, God alone knows that. But the Messiah has come, and we have been redeemed. Jesus will always be with us, Paul teaches. And we have been inspired by no less than the very Spirit of God. Paul tells us that Spirit of Jesus, cries out in us and attends us like a midwife at a birth. We are to hope today, to be patient, to accept our true destiny, to at peace with who we are becoming, the children of God, at peace with the harmony, and one day to know God as God is.